Coming up this week, how should Trudeau deal with Trump? Also, should the RCMP have powers to comb through your digital privacy? This and much more to come. Hitting the streets, this is Outburst. Hello and welcome to Outburst. I'm Glenn McGuinness. When Donald Trump gets inaugurated on January 20th, it might mean a shift in rapport for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as opposed to the previous administration under Barack Obama. Some big issues include a potential change in climate and economic policies, and this could mean in the days to come, Justin Trudeau will have his work cut out for him. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians to give some advice on dialogue when dealing with our neighbors to the south. Our question: what approach should Justin Trudeau take when dealing with Donald Trump?
I think he shouldn't be a friend to him, but I mean, you have to maintain some kind of diplomatic relations as they're our ally, they're our neighbor, and I mean, you don't want the same thing to happen to us that Trump would like to do with Mexico. You know, who knows? I mean, I'm not as educated on the topic as I'd like to be, but that's about it.
Well, I think it's important to just be respectful and to, I don't really think it's a good idea to mess with politics, but politicians have to be respectful and to treat one another with kindness and
I guess he should just be patient with him and not just try not to anger him, because he seems really volatile. Trump, when he gets angry, he just says the crazy things. So
I should say Justin Trudeau should stay the way he is and try and never even think of becoming like him.
I think it's complicated because they have different approach. The view is completely different, but I hope they can find something they can relate together. Yeah.
I think since Donald Trump is an elected president, so it should be a diplomatic approach, see a common ground on both, because in the end, States is a neighbor to Canada, so you can't have hard relationships in the end. So there should be a common background that should be worked on. That's it.
I don't know, stay professional, politically correct. I think the way he approached it when he was running was a good way, not getting too involved. You don't want to get people on your bad side, on your good side too much, but...
I'm speechless. I'm sorry. I don't think that Trudeau needs my advice. I think he'll do just fine.
I think that he should approach him with kindness and just hope that everything turns out good.
Keep an open mind and do as he usually does and keep a head on his shoulders and basically just take it as it goes. I think that's the most intelligent thing to do, and not have any presumptions about what the media seems to instill in the public.
We really have no choice but to find a way that we can get together and sort out our differences, because a lot of his policies could react adversely on our economy, for example. And some of his ideas about the military are a little disturbing. But, it's our closest neighbor, our largest economic partner. We have to find a way through this. And it's important for him to get in there, I think, and start not negotiating per se, but to find out what the policies are that affect us and see, what the best way through is. Because we can't start out from a position of saying, well, we're going to renegotiate all of our contracts and pacts and things, because that then puts the onus on him to sort of bring his ideas ahead of ours. So I think we really need to look at those things. But, there's so much angst out there right now that it's time that we settle down and said, if this man is in office in January, then how do we work with him?
Well, just try and stay on track with what his agenda was before and be true to what he said he was going to do, and try not to get too involved in getting into what he's doing unless it's personally going to really change something here. Just stay focused on our own country.
Probably the best thing that he can do to handle Trump would be to continue to put Canada's interests first, obviously, and to realize that a lot of the attention that Trump has given has been aimed at Mexico, not at Canada. And if Canada continues to do what we've been doing, which is maintain our relationship with the United States, probably the trade deal changes won't affect us as much as they will Mexico.
What is Canada's recently named national bird? Grey jay, snowy owl, or Canada goose?
Grey jay.
The gray jay.
Grey jay?
Canada goose.
Canada goose.
It better not be the Canada goose. Those things are monstrous. Snowy owl?
You want to take this one, Chris?
I'll go for gray jay.
Grey jay. Final answer.
It's grey jay.
Thank you.
According to the Royal Canadian Geographical Society, the grey jay was chosen as Canada's national bird because it is found in the boreal forests of every Canadian province and territory. RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson is lobbying the federal government to let the RCMP gain access to digital devices without a warrant to those suspected of committing crimes. He says today's technology facilitates a fair amount of crime in which law enforcement isn't acting on. But privacy advocates feel this could be a huge infringement on basic privacy rights. So what do you think? Our question: should the RCMP have enhanced digital surveillance powers to fight crime?
As long as it isn't abused and it's used for good things, then I don't see there being an issue with it.
That's a pretty wide-ranged question. Depending on what type of authority they have, I'd say it could help, but in the wrong hands, power definitely could do harm to the people and the country and to the world even. And also, everyone knows that where there's power, there are power-hungry people wanting to use that power, maybe not for good reasons. So definitely to approach it with caution and maybe to keep the information as public as possible so that it can't be misused.
No, absolutely not. I think our rights to privacy are very important to everybody, and I think we don't want to follow suit with the U.S. and you know it's a slippery slope, and I don't know, like we deserve our rights to our own privacy.
I think if we do anything like that, we need to look at what things we're talking about and be very specific in what powers we do give them, and then we have to have oversight. One of the serious problems governments tend to have is they pass laws and things and then they walk away from it, and it isn't until it turns into a disaster that they come back and then try and fix it. And by oversight, I don't mean meddling, but I mean making sure that what the money was designed for is used for that.
I guess it depends. That's a pretty broad question. It depends on how broad they're going to go with it and where it's going to, if it's going to infiltrate people's personal homes and things like that. No, I don't agree with that.
I think that's a touchy subject. I don't think they should be able to have access to my metadata or my emails, my cell phone password without a warrant. I don't think they should be allowed to demand my cell phone password. But I do think they need to work harder at the back end of the computer stuff.
As Canadians, we value our privacy, so you have to balance security with privacy. And I think if there's safeguards in place to know why they're doing it and not just collecting information that they're going to keep for some nefarious purpose down the road, that would be better.
I mean, part of that is just very invasive, and no, I mean, nothing to hide, but also just like investigate better. I don't know what to say. No.
I don't agree. I don't think so, because it's taking away people's civil liberties. You're no longer private. Everything's public. You're always being watched to some extent. You're always you're never really alone, and that would make it more intense.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta reduce crime as much as you can. Once you reduce crime, everything else, all the other bad things reduce also, so better off.
I'd be inclined to say no,
just because I said it might be a breach of privacy and people might just feel uncomfortable, and we just can't have a society where people are living on edge all the time. So I'd say no to that.
You know, if it can help, I mean, fighting with terrorism and everything like that. I mean, we don't feel it that much in Canada, but I know I have family and friends in Europe and, you know, America and stuff like that, so I'm just like, I don't mind. They should do it.
I think that everyone has the right to freedom of speech, and even criminals, they have human rights. So like, I'm against the death penalty and stuff like that. Like, I think humans are humans and humans make mistakes. So I think that they are entitled to their human rights, and I don't think it's right to spy on people, because like, that's what they're doing in the end. They're spying on people. So I don't think it's right to invade someone's privacy just to get information of like if they're committing a crime or not, because it's their privacy and there should be other legal ways to investigate them.
Yes, I think it's not a problem for me if the policeman asks me to search my phone or email, or it's not a problem for me.
No, only if I think I already did a crime and they think I'm going to start again, but if not, no, they shouldn't.
Of course. Who doesn't want to get rid or enhance the crime rate, so to lower things, so for sure, yeah.
I don't see the problem with that. My opinion is if you have something to hide, then you should be worried, but if you don't, then you shouldn't worry about it. So if they need to use that, then why not? If it's going to keep us safer, fine.
Who is Sandy Silver? Legendary Canadian explorer, new premier of Yukon Territory, Canadian pro golfer. Legendary Canadian explorer, new premier of Yukon Territory, Canadian pro golfer.
I'll go for a Canadian pro golfer.
Legendary explorer.
I'll go with new premier.
I'm still going with the pro golfer.
I don't know. I'm going to say pro golfer.
Oh, let's go with the new premier.
I have no idea. I'm going to go with a golfer.
Canadian pro golfer.
Canadian pro golfer. New premier.
He is the new premier of Yukon Territory.
Cheers.
There you go.
Oh, you're all right.
Sandy Silver was elected as Yukon's new Liberal premier on November 7th, 2016. He went from being the lone Liberal member in Yukon's legislature to premier after his party won 11 of the territory's 19 seats. Bullying in schools is not a new phenomenon. It's been around as long as most of us can remember, and with the addition of the internet and social media, it's brought the problem to a whole new level, sometimes with tragic results. So, in a modern age, what is the best way to tackle the problem? Our question: what is the right approach to combat bullying in schools?
I myself was bullied in school when I was younger, and pre-political correctness in the early 80s, it was an entirely different time. Social media now has made it so easy, and self-esteem for younger people is so very, very sensitive that it's definitely a very difficult area, but it's an important one. It's one we should continue to work at. But I would say overall communication between school administrators, teachers, parents really need to get out there and communicate, and I think that might be the best way to take a positive step forward.
I think that combating bullying in schools, we need to look at what has worked in the past in comparison to the present. What are we doing with our students actually in schools to explain to them the long-term effects of what bullying is, and looking at the emotional effects of what's actually happening with the bullier themselves, and less on the child that is being bullying, and what approach are we taking as far as what the past used to work compared to right now.
Well, as an ex-teacher, I think everyone has to get involved first of all in a respectful way, you know, and if you observe bullying, you should make it a point to do something about it. Not only in the schools, everywhere.
Do you think that it's more of an issue now than it was when you were teaching?
Not much. It's a different kind of bullying now, but bullying was just as prevalent then.
Oh, bullying? Oh, well, first of all, again, educating the public, educating the parents, educating the students. And from what I see in my daughter's schools is that they have programs that help them regularly, show them videos, let people talk to them. Yeah, and just strengthen their character to combat bullying as a person or as a group.
I think it's overplayed, and I think too much publicity about bullying. I'm sure it doesn't exist the way the papers write it up. I think it's overemphasized.
Well, first of all, they have to have zero tolerance, I believe. I think in this day and age, it's very important that people feel safe and feel like they have a safe place to go. I think in other areas of society, bullying is not tolerated, so schools, it certainly shouldn't be either. You've got to set the precedent at an early age. So.
Is it worse than it was before from your perspective?
I don't think so, because I know when I went to school, there was an awful lot of it, so I think there's less so now.
But it's a wider with the social media.
Exactly, that's where the difference is now with social media now. I mean, it's attributed to suicide, teen suicides and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a serious situation.
I would say it's very different because nowadays, sometimes when you would get bullied at school, you'd go home and that's like your safe space. But nowadays, everyone's on social media and kids are being bullied through that. There's no escaping it. Like, look at Amanda Todd and what happened to her. That wasn't just because of what happened at school. Like, that was at home and it was constant. And yeah.
More needs to be done still.
Oh, for sure. But I think it's a change in mentality of what is acceptable and what isn't.
Dealing with the problem directly, meaning at home with the parents, ultimately would cut the problem off from its core, I think, because it ultimately comes down to a parenting issue. For the most part, if a kid is acting out at school, there must be something going on at home that could be fixed.
So do you think there could be, how do we approach it differently then? Or
I think maybe the schools could reach out to the parents and give them tips on how to talk to their kids and how to treat their kids at home, so when they go to school they know how to participate in a respectful learning environment.
I think kids today think a lot more about that issue than my generation ever did. It was just something that happened on schoolyards before, and I think now kids think a lot about including everybody. And I know I've seen some instances just from the inclusion perspective, which isn't necessarily bullying, but it goes to show how they think today, and they go out of their way to ensure that people are included. And I think they're a lot more tolerant of differences than, say, our generations ever were. So I think they're moving along pretty well on that.
I have way too many thoughts on bullying in schools because I was tortured as a child. But I really think there needs to be safe places, and I really think that the bullies need to be dealt with, maybe not by suspension or whatever, but in a way that goes along with the crime. They need education. They need to know what they're doing to these people. It's something you carry along for the rest of your life. And I saw that there was schools in the States that are having meditation and putting the kids in time out for meditation to try to calm themselves, because a lot of these bullies aren't necessarily mean kids. They just have no outlet for their anger.
I think it starts at home. I think at the end of the day, as a parent, myself and other parents are responsible for making sure our children understand that that's not okay. And if they were the ones receiving the bullying, I think it would be a different story than the ones delivering it. And at the end of the day, it boils down to parenting, and I think there's a generational gap at one point where I'm not sure if parenting got lazy or if things changed, but it seemed to really become a problem in the last 20, it's always been there to a degree, but the last 20, 25 years especially. And it boils down to parenting. The schools have to do their parts too to put a stop to things, but at the end of the day, it's on our shoulders. They're our kids.
Every child, there's no one child, is necessarily better than the other in this. I think we all need to understand that our kids go through a bunch of things, and we need to, have enough of an open mind and an open heart that we're willing to talk to one another. But we also need to accept that it might be our kid that needs to change, and that means some hard work on our behalf. And so, are we willing as individuals and parents to invest that hard work? To invest what's the problem is? It's going to be complex. It's going to be a bit of hard work, and I think that Again, we tend to look to the school to solve these things. And why aren't we looking inside ourselves as parents?
Bring their mothers. When someone is found out for bullying somebody else, I say bring their mothers and grandmothers in and sit them right there with the people who are bullied, and that'll change pretty quick. I do. I'm a little old-fashioned that way, but I think that would work. Nothing else seems to be working.
Canada was one of the nations that fared reasonably well during the 2008 global financial crisis, but we could have some challenges ahead, especially when it comes to trade. During last year's federal election, the Trudeau Liberals promised to spend more money on infrastructure to help stimulate the economy. So when it comes to dollars and cents, what guidance can you offer? Our question. What advice would you give the federal government to keep Canada's economy strong?
I think we want to ensure that we are still a leader in renewable energy on the world scene, that we take care of our environment, but we never should lose sight of the fact that we are an economy that was built on natural resources, and we need to ensure that we continue to utilize those to pay for all the services and everything that's made this country the best country in the world. That a lot of that is founded on the money that comes out of the ground. So we need to work on renewable energy sources, but while the world is still utilizing things like oil, we need to be cognizant of that. We need to stop treating it like a black mark on our economy and treat it like what it really is one of the leading factors in generating our economy that we have.
They charge outrageous interest rates. When clients get into, or Canadians get into those situations where they borrow money, they can never dig themselves out. So I think for one, they need to make sure that housing is attainable in this country. But the growth of the economy in general, I guess you could say they should make things easier for other businesses to come here from other countries. I mean, obviously they need to support our local entrepreneurs, but they need to make things easier for people to come here and do business. And I think that is one of the drawbacks for Canadians, that it can be a little bit difficult at times. So if they want to open things up a little bit and make it more attainable for people to come here and grow their businesses into Canada, then I think that'd be a huge help.
I think when it comes to the economy, we need to have a better understanding of what we're achieving for our tax dollars. I grew up as a Newfoundlander, and in those days, as a kid, I always saw the federal government as a solution to our problems, as somebody who, as an entity which could be so helpful to us as citizens and to really make a difference. But I think that as you grow older, you get a better understanding of what's the level at which government should be involved in the economy? What's the level of taxation that's reasonable? What are we getting for our tax dollars? How effective is the federal government? I think my personal opinion is that the federal government has grown too large, and that and all of our governments have grown too large. We need more support for the private sector. We need a few more dollars left in the pockets of Canadians where they can invest it themselves. We need to be responsible in how we're spending taxpayers' money. And that's not to imply that there's necessarily anything wrong or untowards going on. I don't have any issues around that. What I'm getting at is more philosophically, there are enough dollars in the system. And as somebody who's worked in the system for all my adult life, there are lots of dollars to go around. The question is, how do we spend them to get the most effect? The most impact, and also how are we looking at those dollars to understand what more should be left in the pockets of Canadians and Canadian business owners, quite frankly, because we need to recognize that it isn't governments that are making more economic activity for Canadians, it's business.
Well, do not follow the United States as far as a banking situation goes. So we have a terrific banking industry. At least that's worked out a little bit better. I think we can take a look at other countries and the mistakes that they've made, and we can be very careful as we move forward, because it is a very fragile. The world economy is very fragile right now in international markets, and I think that it's definitely something that we have to be very, very careful with.
Less spending in bad places. I think that foremost money needs to be spent at home here. We have been known as the peacekeepers and the ones to fix everyone else's problems, where we have our own and we need to focus on what's going on here at home before we fix everyone else.
Continued Conservative government before did lots of investment in infrastructure, maybe continuing with building of jobs and infrastructure and improving Canada in that way, and also boosting or increasing international trade. The recent CETA agreement with Europe is something that was a positive decision for Canada.
Well, I think they're on the right track, I do believe, and that I really firmly believe that there has to be cooperation with the three sections of government, federal, provincial, and civic government. So, in the past there seems to be been a lot of conflict with the three parts. There seems to be now at least an attempt to work together.
I think there's way too little attention paid to trying to balance the budget. That they just keep on spending, and like I read the paper this morning said that our Canadian economy, the deficit this year was predicted at 10 billion. Now it's going to be 20 billion. That's way too much, and it's punitive on us and the future.
I think have really good analysis on interest rates and separate themselves from the other economies such as the United States that are struggling and that type of thing. So job growth, encouragement, and that type of thing, I think.
Honestly, going back to the environmental thing, I think we should be leaders in the international field of research and environmental, and then other countries can look to us. We have a lot of potential for it, so I would say shift your finances to the research sector of the environment.
When did British Columbia join Canada? 1871, 1881, or 1891?
I'm going to say 1871.
1881?
I'm going to go with the same one. 81.
I go 71.
1891.
1891.
I will go 1871, something like that.
The answer, 1871.
Oh my yes! God.
British Columbia entered Confederation on July 20th, 1871. Some colonists viewed it with a sense of reluctance and loss, while others viewed Confederation as a new beginning and a way out of their economic depression. That's all for this episode of Outburst. Like what you see? Well, you can watch more episodes on our website at www.cpac.ca, on our CPAC TV To Go app, and also on our YouTube channel. You can also join the conversation via social media on Twitter and Instagram at CPAC_TV. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of all my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.